We have caught some really nice wahoos over the last 3 weeks, okay? 3 weeks. We caught our biggest one on the planer so far on the Lisa B, 81 pounds on the short left planer. People say, how do you catch a fish like that on such light monofilament? Remember, our shock cord is 80 pound, and then it's got fluoro of 60 pound at the end, this right here. So this is, you're talking about catching an 80 pound fish on some relatively really thin fluorocarbon. So a couple things that guys were asking me about. When I keep talking about another wahoo eating your sea witch, it doesn't matter if you're trolling a planer or you're trolling, high-speed trolling, and the lure slides up the line and gets eaten because it's at the swivel or spot up here. If this item, whatever this item might be, islander, sea witch, whatever it is, actually slides this way in this direction because the fish is hooked up here swimming in that direction, wahoo goes that way, sea witch goes that way, stops right here, 6, 8, 10 feet away. All of a sudden another wahoo sees this one, eats it right off in 2 seconds, you lose the fish, okay? You hear people say, yeah, he really ate way up the leader. We got bit off. He must have been a giant fish because it was bit up the leader 3 feet. This is what he ate 3 feet up, your leader. So people say, well, what should I really do to be able to keep this down here? This is a trick. This is a cool piece of information for you, whether you're lure fishing or you're sea witch fishing. I'm going to have Jeff come in here in a second right over my shoulder. We'll put the bait on the hook so you can see that again, but also a little trick that you can do to be able to keep this down near the wahoo's mouth so it doesn't get eaten. Check this out. All right, so here's the ingredients. Ready? Piece of floss, 50 pound, 35 pound, whatever you really want. You'll see what we do with that in a second. We got our sea witch rig with the mylar planer hook, the piece of Monel soft stainless here to fasten this strip, the wahoo strip, on the hook. The first thing, and guys say, why do I go through the skin side? To me, it's easier to put a hole in the skin side than it is the meat side. I go through it, I can really see what I'm doing. In the last video, planer hook, I actually do this, so you can go back right now. The purpose of this video is really to show how to hold the sea witch in place. So that you got your bait on. You've got your sea witch down here by the hook. Now, simply take this piece of floss here. We'll take it. Some guys simply tie an overhand knot to get you started right there at the tip. One overhand knot gets it started. Can you see that, Jeffrey? Mm-hmm. Got an overhand knot. Give me one other overhand knot. Some guys like to tie a loop knot. You see me tie that a lot in bait. Not really necessary, but you're pulling tight here. I'm pulling that sucker tight right on the head. Now, that keeps the sea witch from riding up the line. Go ahead and trim the ends. So little tips and techniques to keep you tight. At the end of the day, that's what you're looking at. Some guys will take a toothpick and stick it in the end of the top of this. I don't need to show you how to put a toothpick in a hole. But what you'll do is, if you wanted to shove the toothpick down into the top of the sea witch head as hard as you can, and then break off the toothpick, that'll hold it. What we noticed, the floss actually holds it a bit better. So when you're trolling, that definitely doesn't have the ability to ride up the line. So it seems very simple and very fundamental, but at the end of the day, the fundamentals of what you do are everything. The setup of the bait, where the hook comes out, the hook you're using, the combination you're looking at, one of the top 3 colors, crystal with a mylar underneath, for almost everything that we catch on a planer out here. But remember, whether you're fishing a sea witch or you're fishing a high-speed lure of some sort, when you're targeting wahoo on mono, use the floss, 30 pound or 50 pound to tie the knot to keep it in place. Another wahoo tip, trolling, planers. Wahoo, 8 knots, 9 knots, optimum speed. One of the biggest things guys have an issue with that we're noticing using the jumper. Remember, this right here is the jumper where you put your planer on the actual rod, just so you can see it. Let's go ahead and put it on. Hardest part is getting it in the hole. But anyway, your jumper here, right here, Jeff, can you see that? Yep. I'm gonna make it a little, just close this one a little bit. Overall, that's what your rig looks like when it's down trolling, okay? What's happening a lot of times to guys, they're using so much drag because they're using a big planer. So they use so much drag that the rod's really jacked over with so much drag. By the time they get a bite, they're snapping this knot. And this knot that goes on the wind-on swivel needs to be doubled. In some of the films, you hear Mark talk about an ocean knot and some others. Guys, regardless of the knot you're tying here, when I say it's doubled, you're gonna come in and I'm gonna actually tie the knot for you. So you can kind of see an example of really doing a strong double knot. That means there's 2 legs of the actual knot around the swivel ring. 2 legs around it, not one. So again, why are you experiencing snap-offs? If you are and you're only tying a single, it cannot withstand the inertia of the frickin' bite on a real Wahoo because you have so much drag on the rod to set the planer and keep it from going out. Go back to the film, talked about creeping, allowing your set your planer short of your desired distance, set the planer short of that and let it creep. Fish for 10 minutes, slow the boat down a second, take a few cranks on the planer, wind it back up short of the position you want it to be, and let that sucker creep. But guys are snapping off their mono, thinking they're tying bad knots. You just need to tie the right knot and you'll have more success. So come in over my shoulder, we'll talk about the knot that you're struggling with if you are. Here's your 60-pound fluoro, here's your swivel. It can be this kind of a swivel, it can be a swivel that has the round center as well. So take the end, double your line. Go ahead and pinch your line here so it's got a crease in it. Put it through the actual swivel. That's what's giving you the double line. When I talk about the 2 legs, I'm going to tie a simple uni knot. I make a loop like that, go through the loop 1, 2, 3, 4 times. I'm going to pull it tight here. I just pulled the knot tight. Okay. Go ahead and pull that. Now you remember you got the tag here as well. Go ahead and pull it down to the swivel. Pulling it tight, seating that knot. Pull tight. Now pull each leg here. Pull this one really tight. Pull this one really tight. Pull that one. All the legs on this knot, you want to pull really, really, really tight. Now, think about something for a second. If this was single line going through that swivel ring can cut that mono. Right now, you're looking at 2 legs. And to be honest with you, once you really pull down on that sucker and seat that knot, now that will withstand a Wahoo bite. Looks a little bulky, but remember, we got a planer hanging from this. So that double line knot that you see right there makes all the difference in the world when you're dealing with pressure from the Wahoo. And don't forget, let your reel creep. Don't lock it up so much that there's so much pressure and you snap it off here at the swivel. Wahoo tip, trolling tip. Whether you're bill fishing, Wahoo fishing, tuna fishing, certain things, when you spend a lot of time on the ocean fishing and you experience success, you experience failure, one of the things you really truly need to log into your bank is what you're fishing at the times of success. And we always talk about failure as well, but think about something. I want you to think about this. You're out trolling and you catch 2 wahoos or 3 wahoos or 4 wahoos or a bunch of fish. Turn a little bit to your left, Captain. What you're going to notice about, and we notice because we fish 220 days a year, what you notice is when you make a change to your spread, what you're actually putting in the water to simplify, and I always tell you, simplify your spread. Remember this though. If I'm fishing a teaser, let's just create a scenario. Today, if I've had success wahoo fishing, and my spread has consisted of a high line, one way behind the boat, 2 outriggers, 2 planers, and 2 teasers behind the boat, that is the basis of your spread. Now, if I say, God, the wahoo were really biting yesterday, and I'm telling you this because I've experienced this a lot, I'll say, you know what, gosh, we caught the wahoos on the short planer, so we're gonna go fishing tomorrow. Turn a little bit to your left, Captain. And we're gonna just fish the short planer and the long planer. And we'll go out and we'll target wahoo. Now, one of the things I can tell you is, when you change the dynamics of the spread, there's a reason you were getting bit. And a lot of times it may not have to do with the rod that's getting bit. Yes, he ate that. And the guy says to me the other day, what about the sound of the boat? Is it the first thing? Here's what I can tell you. Because they always say, how does Captain Mark Danley, Wahoo McDanley, we call him, the captain of the Lisa B, why does he catch so many wahoo? I have yet to really see many charter boats fishing teasers inshore. Most people think, oh, I'm going to fish a daisy chain of teasers well offshore for mahi, billfish, and in South Florida, we don't catch a lot, in South Florida where we are, we don't catch a lot of billfish that are raised by the teaser where we fish in 150 to 300 feet of water. Yes, we catch a few a year trolling that way. Farther up towards Fort Pierce, Stewart, in those areas, they target them. They're fishing dredges, multiple mullet dredge baits, ballyhoo dredge baits. But for us, generally, we're trolling, and the meat of most of our fish are caught trolling. So when I come out on my little boat and I say, well, I can't really reproduce a spread that I have on a big boat, but for you who own a center console, when you have success, remember the spread that you had when you had success, and don't really stray from that. I am a firm believer that a squid chain teaser, in addition to the boat, in addition to the placement of the short planer, creates that bait ball effect and that reactionary bite from a wahoo. Most of our bites on wahoo come on the short planer like this, right behind the boat. Now, this rod here that you're looking at that I'm holding, I'm placing above it and just beyond it. But all of that movement, remember, place yourself underwater and imagine that everything you see, here's this big shape that's coming by me, and all of a sudden, there's 2 schools of squid. Well, I didn't see the planer yet, and maybe he's seeing the whole picture. Take the whole picture in, not just the lure or the sea witch. It's about the whole presentation of what you've created. And when you start plucking items out of the spread, expect not to do as well based on what it is that you have or your success with what it was that you were fishing when you had success. I see guys do it a lot, especially out here off South Florida. You see guys go out with 2 rods. Can you catch a wahoo? Sure, you can catch a wahoo. But the truth be told, if I have a few more things out there that attract, you're probably going to have a little bit more luck. And remember, it's not just about the bait. Mark Danley says it best. Why does he catch so many? It's about every single thing he does. It's about this, a little bit of a larger sea witch. It's a little bigger profile. It's a little longer hook. It's an added swivel. We caught an 81-pound wahoo last week on 60-pound fluorocarbon on a hook this big. Go through the films. How do we keep a fish on when you have a fish that big, where you think in 2 seconds you can cut them off? All those ingredients add up to success. So cutting stuff out and specifically changing your spread to simplify at times may not be the best thing. Always put your best foot forward, and always remember, when you have success, log the information. Well, I had one on the right long, take a little bit of a left, Captain. I had one on the right long, I had one on the short. We had the teasers out, and there were two baits behind that. That created that bite, that whole thing. It wasn't just the lure. The boat is the first thing they see. Whatever comes behind that, remember, in this case, teasers. Am I saying to always put teasers in? No, but if you never have, and if you have a boom, even on a center console like that, man, some guys will run a teaser off a cleat right out the hawser pipe to a short squid chain. Try it, give it a shot. You might have more success doing something like that, because I can tell you 6 squids in a row attracts more than a sea witch does. One sea witch with a bait, this boat and the 6 squids in a row caught my attention. Now I'm looking, now I come and eat what's behind those squid chains, and that's the short planer. Don't change your spread, add something to it. If you got any questions, reach out.